I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we've got something really fascinating to unpack. We're diving right into Matthew chapter 3, specifically looking at the events of Jesus' baptism. Now, on the surface, sure, it's a story we've all heard a million times. But as we start peeling back the layers today, we're going to uncover this incredibly profound lesson about obedience, one that honestly almost always gets overlooked. So let's just jump right in and see what the text is actually trying to tell us.
Right off the bat, I want to pose a question for you to chew on. Why did God actually say, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased"? I mean, really think about that for a second. There's this huge, widespread misconception out there that God endorsed Jesus in that exact moment simply because, well, he was God. People kind of treat it like an automatic rubber stamp. You know, God looks down, spots his son, and is just like, yep, that's him, approved. But is that actually what the text is showing us?
It's so easy to assume that endorsement was just an automatic perk of his divine identity. Actually, scratch that. The biblical reality paints a completely different picture. As our source material lays out, God's endorsement wasn't some random, empty statement. It wasn't a given. It was intricately tied to a life of active, deliberate obedience. God's favor wasn't a careless rubber stamp at all. It was a direct response. Let me show you exactly how the text proves this. To really get this, we have to look at the humility of Jesus. Picture the scene in Matthew 3:13. It says, "Then cometh Jesus from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be baptized of him." Notice those first three words, "then cometh Jesus." He traveled. The text makes such a brilliant point here. Jesus wasn't pompous. He wasn't sitting back in his living room demanding, "Hey, I'm God, so John needs to come out here and baptize me." No way. He actively humbled himself, made the trek from Galilee to the Jordan, and went directly to John.
And here is the kicker. Greatness does not excuse a person from obedience. That is a massive takeaway. True greatness is literally always accompanied by humility. Even as the Son of God, Jesus didn't use his VIP status as some sort of loophole to skip the steps of obedience. That is a standard that absolutely changes how we should view leadership and life.
Which brings us to fulfilling all righteousness. Things get pretty tense at the riverbank. The text says, "But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of thee, and comest thou to me?" John the Baptist rightly recognized exactly who he was dealing with. He knew Jesus was vastly superior. John understood perfectly well that he needed Jesus infinitely more than Jesus needed him. He felt so unworthy to baptize the Son of God that he actually tried to put a stop to the whole thing. But Jesus' response is just perfect. Verse 15, "Suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." He's basically telling John, look, I hear you, I know you know who I am, but let's do this right now. Why? To fulfill all righteousness. Jesus willingly shelved his status. He completely bypassed any sense of self-promotion, humbling himself specifically to submit to God's ultimate plan. And that right there perfectly illustrates the core of Jesus' mission, fulfilling the Father's will. He didn't come to earth to run his own agenda or build his own brand. Every single thing he did, every step he took down into that water was strictly according to God's word. He was 100% laser-focused on obedience, not elevation.
Okay, so let's shift gears and look at the sequence of blessing. The order here is absolutely crucial.
Listen closely to verse 16. "And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him." Pay attention to that transition word right in the middle, when. When he was baptized. The heavens cracking open and the Spirit coming down, that was not a random coincidence. It was a direct, immediate response to Jesus' submission. The heavens opened when the act of obedience was finished.
And only after that do we hit verse 17. "And lo, a voice from heaven, saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Look at that sequence. God's huge public validation only happened after the obedience was done. It completely proves that this wasn't just a careless endorsement because of who Jesus was. It was the public validation of a life completely submitted to the Father. Let's map this out because the cause and effect is undeniable here. Step 1, humility, as Jesus makes the journey to John. Step 2, obedience, as he insists on going through with it to fulfill righteousness. Only then do we get step 3, the heavens open up in response. And finally, step 4, God actually speaks. After the humility, God spoke. After the submission, God spoke. The order is set in stone.
So what are the lessons for believers? How does this apply to us?
Well, the bottom line is this: alignment unlocks blessing. Now, to be super clear here, as our source material emphasizes, This doesn't mean we somehow earn God's love by checking off a to-do list. Not at all. His love is a gift. But choosing to obey His word directly positions us for His favor. It aligns our lives with what He's doing. Jesus spent 33 years walking in that exact alignment, delighting in the Father's things. And because of that, God prospered His mission.
So how do we put this into practice? We've got to pursue humility, pursue obedience, pursue God's will, and really delight in His word. The real challenge for us is to stop just reading the text like it's some dusty old academic book and start living it out in real time. Let the word actually dictate your steps. Because when we walk like Jesus walked, we place ourselves right in the center of God's pleasure.
I want to leave you with this final thought to really ponder today. Ask yourself, does your daily obedience actually position you to hear God say, "I am well pleased"? Remember, it's all about alignment. Humility comes first, obedience follows, and that is when the blessing opens up. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep chasing that alignment, and we will see you next time.